All right, we are here for Conversations with Rob, and our special guest today is Ed Till. He's an award-winning host. He's been in 14 or more different markets, and right now he's on Delaware 105.9 WXDE from 12 to 3. Ed, first of all, thanks for coming on, and second of all, happy birthday. I know your birthday's coming up on February 6th, so I don't know if you want to hear me sing happy birthday because my voice isn't the best, but happy birthday, I'll say it.
Well, terrific, Rob. Thank you. Take a shot. Go ahead. Come on, man.
Happy birthday to
All right, you're
you.
right. Okay, it's probably a bad idea. That's okay. That's fine. It was very sincerely intended, and I appreciate that. That's nice of you to acknowledge. Yeah, man. Pleasure to be on your podcast. And as you say, I've been on a lot of stations over the years.
Yeah, and let's get into that. So I'm really big into sports radio. As you know, I've called your show quite a few times. Big into sports radio, political radio, news radio. But for a guy like me, asking you, what made you get into radio as far as any kind of media?
Well, it's very similar, I think, from what I know now. It's interesting you ask me this now. Way down the line, I think I have a much better answer than I would have had, right? Over the years, I've come to know guitar players, bands, actors, entertainers of all kind. So radio and talk radio fit right in with that kind of a performance career. Usually there's somebody that you hear early on that you think is phenomenal, almost as an extension of either the way you think or at least they see what you see in the world. They may not agree with you, but they're watching all the same stuff as you. And the way they talk about it on the air, you're drawn in very early. So I had this experience with the great Bob Grant, New York WABC, many, many years WOR before that, a true legend, Howard Stern, co-equal on the idea of the Mount Rushmore of radio back in the 80s and 90s, phenomenal. And this guy was on when I was a little kid. So he's much older than me and Howard. Howard and I are in a similar demographic group. Howard's about a year and a half older than me. Bob passed away a few years, but he was a good 25 years older than me. So when I was a kid, my parents listened to Bob Grant. Bob Grant made a big impression on me where I started very early in the early teens thinking, I want to get on the air and do that. I could do that. This guy's amazing. I could do that. So that's how it started for me and a lot of guys back then.
Now, you've worked in a variety of different markets, as we just spoke about, and you've worked at music, talk radio. What was your favorite market to work in, and why?
Well, there's no question. Now, when you say music, I really haven't been a DJ, as you see, the traditional DJ. I've been a talk show guy from the beginning. In 1975, I very much wanted to take any job in radio. I was a college freshman, and I was like, I don't care what they let me do, but I want to get in the building. And I could not get in at the college radio station. Freshman year, they would not let me on. You're only a freshman. You can't even sweep up. You can't even talk to the DJs. Nothing. So I was very frustrated by this. So I followed an ad for a New Jersey radio station. And at the New Jersey radio station, they would let you purchase your own airtime and put any show you want on the air. Of course, it had to be FCC compliant. You weren't allowed to say anything vulgar, and it had to be pretty mainstream. It's New Jersey, but as long as you were on there doing a show, you could buy the airtime to put your show on the air.
Sure.
So when I found out about that, I said, forget these guys. They won't even let me in the building. I'm going to get my show on Saturday night, and my show was on at 2 in the morning.
Wow.
So it was not a very good slot, but I didn't care because I was on. And what you would do was you recorded your show on Wednesday, in a studio and submitted the show to them. Then they listened to it. If it was okay, they put it on, and after a while, they let you go live. But in the beginning, you had to earn their trust because they knew that you were producing your own show. Now, the people that helped you produce it, where they collected the $25 for the show, they had advisors for you. If you were stuck on production, you weren't good on the microphone, you were struggling, they would help you so that the station wouldn't reject your show. Occasionally, they would reject somebody's show. I was never rejected. I was liked and got compliments right away on the very first show. I was 19, and I was on the air getting compliments right away, very first show, so I thought I was on the right track. And I started out January the 25 January 1975,
Wow.
and the controversy of my show was why some rock bands with women got paid less than rock bands with men.
Right. Well, my thing is with that kind, I know controversy is big in talk radio, but talk radio's changed probably since you started. I mean, we see all sorts of changes. It's gotten more like provocative, especially in the 90s. And you look back, and maybe it's just me because I was born in 1989, but I look back in the 90s and you see with the Clinton scandals, the 2000 election, but even with that with that era, we've seen a lot of vitriol. So could you talk about how talk radio's changed from, I think of, and I wasn't old enough really, but I think of, when I hear all these older tapes of older
I'm going to give you a great example. That's a great, you're asking a great question.
Sure.
You're talking about an era when I was, an up-and-coming superstar talk radio host in Los Angeles, and it was very, very heady, exciting times, right? No pun intended on heady, that he was, getting head. That's just between you and me, all right? I just make it up, have a laugh. So here's the excitement and the answer to your question, both side by side. It was phenomenal times because, in fact, this guy is denying something very sensational, and no mainstream news, mainstream talk radio, mainstream broadcast company had ever used any of these words on the air. They were thought to be George Carlin prohibited, even though they weren't enumerated in the 12, and they were still assumed to be in the same unspeakable department of all time. No way you're going to say the word fellatio on the air with the president. What are you, nuts? They'll shut you down, baby. So that changed because little by little, the story kept being reported. The story hovered in the culture. So that was a true recalibrating of what you could say. Now, let me answer your other question. I think it's even more important. But what I just told you is historically true, and it was kind of exciting to be there watching the culture change. But here's what's really interesting. The vitriol on Clinton was no different than the vitriol against Trump or Obama. There's new ways of enunciating it, kind of like heavy metal came after loud metal, and death metal comes after heavy metal, then I don't know, apocalyptic metal comes, and it's always going to be that game of what I have right now is much more intense than anyone's ever had.
Right.
You always have to go, that's part of the excitement that draws people. But in fact, the oldest American elections were vicious in personal attack, births out of wedlock, immoral behavior, backstabbing, treason. These words have always been around because humans are very emotionally charged on when they buy into that politics is my future. Like, as the country goes, so goes my wife, my kids, my mortgage, my Toyota Camry, my health care, my hair plugs, my LASIK surgery. You know, we're all tied up, man.
But Ed,
We got so much in. So that's what I think. That's why the vitriol would be the same, but it's saying it's louder because it's new people. These are new young people very upset.
Right. Well, and that kind of leads me into my next question, but to go kind of back to that just for a second, don't you feel like that's kind of when it started, where you see Rush Limbaugh, Sean Hannity?
No, here's the thing, Reagan. No, Reagan was vilified. I'm going to tell you when it changed.
Okay.
Because I was there. I've been there. One thing about me is I'm old, but I'm still very alert.
Hey, you said it, not me.
I'm still very, very alert. I have a great memory, which has always served me well, but now it's very marketable, so I'm using it in a myriad of ways. So let me share some with you at no charge. Here's the thing. When Kennedy was president, many people remember, I'm sure you have watched these old documentaries, there was a crowd who thought he was a vicious Catholic, papist, traitor who should be executed for treason, not behind closed doors, but with the approval of the public. If the public really would come out and admit it, this guy, it was insanity, but you know, he's like, it's a pocket of hatred that is very specific, because this is no epidemic. This is not catching on like wildfire. But in this little tribe, this is really the way they feel. So that's always been the mantra of destruction. The mantra of destruction began there in the modern day. Through the Eisenhower, people who had contempt for him, Harry Truman, who had people had contempt for Truman, people had contempt for FDR, big time. They thought he was a lefty freako. But even that, what you would express publicly didn't have your word, vitriol, at the level as the Kennedy treason began. And then I think when you take the trauma of the assassination, there was a feeling, you know, in a perverted, twisted way, that they were legitimately hating on this guy because some lunatic shot him on their behalf, and then we were off to the races in the modern day. You know, then LBJ is a murderer, and Nixon is a you know, then we're into everybody's going to the gallows for something from that moment forward. So I remember when that started. I remember when the vitriol, you know, replaced anger.
Right, and it just seems, and like you said, I'm only 29 years old, so. But even following the news and stuff as avid as I do, it just, to me, it seemed like, I mean, we did see a lot of vitriol with Clinton, Bush, and Obama, but it just seems like, and even as a progressive, and I'll even say it, I think that the Democrats are just very fixated on Russia, and they keep spewing this stuff with Trump, and then so they're spewing hate on the left. And on the right, Trump is, you know, this is any different opinion, but Trump is saying all this stuff for the white supremacists, these key words. So it seems like America, I guess what I'm trying to get to is, how do we bring back civility? And when we got all these people preaching on...
It's a very good point. It's a very good point. Now, this is you know, like many things, Rob, again, I speak to you as a guy who's been around the block here, of these big, wide chasms of opposition, you know, deep, deep divisions as a subject. Yeah. Well, you know, that word today has changed. Hatred today is being used, as I think you're invoking it right now, as a volume level of contempt. If somebody really doesn't like Italian food, or peanuts make them die, or they're, you lactose intolerant, and the more you ask them to try it, the sicker and sicker they're getting.
Right.
That's really not hatred, but I understand how that word is used today. Hatred used to mean a profound, deliberate attempt to do something, but today I think it has to do with how mean and harsh and hurtful things sound.
Right.
I think hurtful and mean are really never hateful, but it's so hated to have these feelings that they feel like hate.
Right.
This is what hate must feel like. So there are people. There's always going to be people that truly hate, and they're lunatics. They're always excoriated and isolated by plain society. What he's playing to, he's legitimizing the people who are insensitive because they're angry. They're truly not being sensitive, and they don't want to be told to be sensitive because they're angry right now. A guy wakes up in the morning and somebody has taken a dump on his lawn. He doesn't see the homeless guy, but he knows there's homeless in the neighborhood. He's got a big piece of human dump right next to his mailbox, and his kid is yelling about it, and he's looking at it, and he doesn't want to pick it up, and he doesn't know what to do, and he didn't put this guy out, but that is human dump, and it does smell, and he's out there in his pajamas. This guy, he is not a white supremacist, but he is going to say some very harsh things about the welfare state and who gets helped, and so it goes. So that's really the biggest damage. Trump is not creating any new Klan, and anybody who ever said the Klan was gone or the Nazis are gone is a little bit naive. Same thing with ISIS is gone. Nothing's ever really gone. The communists are not. There's always people who lose their mind, and they're so far away from everything. They find people in the same club. They print up a T-shirt and they're in. White hoods, crosses, whatever you want to call it, SWAT stickers. It's all the same thing. I'm a lunatic. You're a lunatic. Does that sound good to you? Yeah, let's go kill this thing, and we'll feel better about ourselves.
All right, Ed, I want to steer us back to the media conversation, and then we'll dabble into a little bit of politics. As working in the media, my thing is, as a progressive, as a progressive, I've heard Air America Radio in the 2000s. It was not a long-lived experiment. It was maybe a couple years on end. How come conservatives have always pretty much dominated talk radio? That's my question to you.
I think, two kinds of talk has always cut through. Absolutely what you just said, conservative talk, right? And this goes back to what I heard as a kid. Bob Grant endorsing the Vietnam War when I was a little boy. Okay, conservative talk radio, dominant. However, there's another kind of talk radio that has always done just as well. You might know the name Art Bell. Of course, people know that radio career of Larry King. And both of those shows were incredibly successful overnight, being skeptical of everything. I don't believe that we landed on the moon. I don't believe there's gravity. There's no such thing as the Mississippi River. It's an illusion because of the angle of the sun and the clouds. Bigfoot was there. The flying saucers are in that garage right there. I saw that guy autopsy that alien. You can't tell me that was a baby shark running around the backyard. It bit my cousin, and you have to put me on your show. I wrote a book.
So like Alex Jones, Conspiracy Radio, you say that was
everything. It's not Paul McCartney. They're still saying to me. I was a little kid, and I loved the Beatles, man, and I didn't need this kind of trauma. They go, Paul McCartney was actually killed in a car wreck yesterday. His body double has taken over for him in the Beatles, even though the Beatles deny this. And I went and panicked into the living room. I tell this to my parents. Could this be true? Of course not. To this moment, if you Google fall, F-A-U-L, for fake Paul, If you Google it, they are still working on this to this moment. That the fake one is still running around the world right now. Yeah.
So Ed,
So there's that.
oh,
Yeah.
I'm sorry, Ed. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, so that's talk radio too. Skepticism, independent thinking, challenging the the U.S. government was in on the Kennedy assassination, this kind of thing. Yeah.
All right.
That was my point.
So Ed, you're a guy, and I've listened to you many times, that tells it like it is on the radio. So did you ever say anything on the radio you regret? Because like I said, I've done some of my research, and they said when you were in Atlanta that you had called John Lewis a moron, which nowadays is nothing. That's like listening to Rush Limbaugh. That's like listening to Sean Hannity. That's like listening to Rachel Maddow at night. And I mean, I don't understand, like at that time, maybe that was a big deal, but now that's nothing. I just wanted to know, do you think the station was like that, maybe they took it too far, or is there anything that you regret saying on the radio? I'd love to hear what you have to say about it.
Bob, what a great question. Great research, my friend. Well, two things very important. Very important. Number one, I've been on the air, as I mentioned, 1975 until now.
Sure.
I don't regret a single word. All of the controversies I've been involved in on the air have to do with how candid I am with my audience about the most controversial subjects of the moment.
Sure.
So my job is kind of like the Hurricane Hunter plane. I fly into the storm and I take the reading of the storm inside the storm. Now, there's a price to pay for that, but that price is not mine. The price has always been for the poor receptionist at the front desk when the phones are going crazy. Then it's the poor salespeople. I can't believe he said that. Then, of course, the salespeople make money from it. I'd like to advertise on that lunatic show. So for all of that, I have absolutely no regret either. It's funny, you're asking me this question. I was asked this the other day, and that might be the title of my autobiography. Get ready to write my autobiography now, as I'm coming up on 50 years on the air. Not a word we were talking about. And how do you like that question of yours? All right, go ahead. Anything else?
Yeah, just a couple more quick questions.
You got it.
What advice, for a guy like me that loves talk radio and political radio, what advice would you give to somebody trying to get into talk radio and media in general?
Here's the thing, I think. What a great question. Good for you. This is what's changed enormously. It was really a very clinical preparation that you would get back in my day. Now, it was good stuff, but it was very clinical. And looking back now, it's not the clinical that makes the difference to the audience. So here's what I think really anybody who was going in today, very competitive, many more shows today available. It's kind of like when TV went to cable and cable went to internet. The choices for the audience are many, many, many more than ever. So you got to be better than ever before. But what you have to do is you have to find what you do best. Are you a storyteller? Are you a humorist? Are you a good listener? And you're going to be a great interviewer because you know how to ask and bring out the best in people, which I notice with me, you have good interview skills. You got the research, you've got the familiarity, you got the POV from a different age as I am. All of that is those are skills that after you do them, as the book says, 10,000 times, you become amazing at them. Or you get stuck along the way and you kind of hit the wall, it's not your skill. But what I'm saying is once you get that personally good at it, that's the thing that separates you from everybody. Then people they don't just want to hear a show, they want to hear you. People never say to me, what's your name? I know you. Never. They never say that. They go, Ed Till? Ed Till? Like they say it like it's one word. Ed Till? Are you Ed Till? That's that's how specific the relationship has been. I like to tell people say, what's your relationship like with your old-time listeners? Because I have old-time listeners, man. They've been listening to me since the 80s. They're still listening to the show. So I say it's like when you're dating somebody for 20 years. You know, it's not marriage because you're not together all the time.
Right.
You know what I mean? I'm only there for a few hours a day. But it is like dating somebody for a long, long time.
Makes sense, yeah.
You know everything. Yeah.
Makes sense. So I got about two more real questions. And I've got a couple of fun one-word answers I'd love for you to, when I ask you these questions.
Nice.
So you've moved to quite a few different markets. How do you assess the new market when you move to? Obviously, when you move into a new market, there's different demographics. And do you stay the same when you move market to market, or do you change with the demographics? I know that you've been to...
Wow, you should be teaching at some school about this. What a great question. All right, here we go. Stand back, because very specific answer. I'll make it quick. Boom, boom, boom. Show prep is identically the same because you know who your listeners are. It doesn't matter where they live. However, to show them respect, you got to learn the pronunciations. You got to learn the drive time. You got to learn where traffic always builds up, where always floods, what schools always shut down, where the rock slides are, the earthquakes, the hurricanes. You know, how do you get out of town? How do you get into town? You got to do that out of respect. But you're there to have that same relationship with them. You know, it's all about us. You know, we're in this together, and I'm kind of a big mouth on your team now. You know, everybody else has somebody yelling about them on TV and, you know, in the media. I'm here to yell on your behalf. I'm here, let's get something done around. And plus, you got to entertain. It's got to be fun. But every part of the country has colloquialisms about humor. So you do have to pick them up. You got to go find out what's happening at the local dive bar, the local diner. You know, you got to get the lingo, you know.
Right. So here's my last real question. Then I want a couple of, like I said, we'll go to those kind of 1-2 word answers. Reading through, and like I said, I did a lot of research on you, Ed. In the 1998 Reason magazine, they called you a left liberal. Now, I listen to you on 105.9 all the time, and I do not hear a left-wing liberal. I hear you talk about Trump a lot. So what is your political ideology when I'm hearing this magazine saying you're a left liberal, and I listen to you all the time?
Well, that's it. I mean, there you go. I mean, you can almost tell what the answer is going to be from the tone of your question. You know, I don't fit that. You don't know me because I don't know me like that.
Right.
What I think they might have heard in 98, believe me, I was no supporter of Clinton in 98. Okay. But I was protective of Chelsea having her privacy invaded. And I did 3 days of a topic where I forget what was in the news, but there was a news story about whether or not to follow her, like in the tabloid world. And at that time, the guy from Reason magazine was writing the article. So I've always said that to myself because that gets quoted everywhere. And, you know, my father was a Nixon Republican, a Barry Goldwater Republican even. My mom was a Kennedy Democrat. Okay. So for somebody like me, my DNA has no real loyalty to either team. Now, you know, there's a lot of alternative choices, right? You can be third party, libertarian, all of them. Right. But I have to be honest with you, I've always said, and I've always registered independent. Like if you look at my voter's registration card right now, it is no party affiliation. I'm not with the independent party. I'm not with the liberal party. I'm not with the conservative party. I'm not with the libertarian. I am no party. So I think that's what journalists are supposed to do. And I'm not a reporter journalist, but I'm an opinion journalist. I mean, I'm a person. I've been creating commentary for all these years, and I've written over the years, blah blah blah. What I do, I think, almost requires that you don't be one thing, and you come strong on what you believe. And right now, I don't think there's anything better for America than Trump right now. This guy was far and away the best choice, without question. Yeah.
But we can agree to disagree on that. But
Right.
we'll move to.
Right.
Go ahead. We'll move to the 1 or 2 word answers.
Yeah, do the one words now. I'm probably burning you out. You're like, oh my God, this guy can talk on the phone the same way he talks on the air. He doesn't shut the. Yeah, go ahead, man.
Ed, you know I'm a talker too, so. But anyway, what is your? I know you're a music man, and you've made some of your audio clips for your own show. What's your favorite song and musician?
Of all time?
Yeah, I mean, if you can give it to me.
Wow, look at you. That's big. All right, all time.
I know you said you're a Beatles guy, but.
Exactly. Yeah, I'll pick a song. If I could bring only one song with me, I will bring the following song in the car. If I could only have one song, and that's it, only one song in the car.
Right.
I am going to bring, wow, I Am the Walrus by the Beatles, John Lennon.
All right. Fair enough. That's a
One
great
song.
tune. Yeah, great tune.
Yeah, there you go.
All right. So, favorite politician ad of all time?
Well, you're right now, boy. What neck and neck. All time, I don't think I'm ever going to have as much fun because I was a kid as JFK.
Okay.
Love JFK. Too much like a fake movie star from Hollywood. You know, too cool for school. Now, I will tell you, different than today's world, I didn't hear a lot of envy and hatred that he was born into a rich family. I think the Kennedys got away with the idea that they made so much money in America that they were doing public service to pay back. This is the way we can do something good here. We're free of worried about money. We'll go work for the country. But either way, JFK, the most dashing. Reagan was my favorite grandpa. How could he not be? I was in my 20s. I was a new talk show host. You know, I was a kid. I was, you know, when Reagan was in, I was in my 20s, but everybody else in talk radio was in their 50s. So I loved it. I loved being the kid, and I loved Reagan. Then he won 49 out of 50 states. And I went, and he was like the Led Zeppelin. You know, he really was. He was like bigger than the Beatles. 49 out of 50 states. Incredible, Rick. And this guy is like the Clash. He's like the Sex Pistols. You know, he's just punk rock, and he's spitting on the audience if they don't like him. He doesn't care, kicking over the mic stand, throwing it at the audience, you know, flicking his cigarettes. He doesn't care, this guy. He just wants to push it his way. You know,
all right. And the last question I have for you, Ed, and
yes.
you can't, maybe you can give me a definitive answer on this, but not sure about this, but I'll ask it anyway. We don't know who the Democratic candidate is, but if you were to analyze the 2020 race now, do you think Trump has a great shot at winning, a good shot, or a poor shot?
You know, Newt Gingrich wrote about this 10 days ago.
Sure.
And all he did was remind me of what I knew, but I'm glad he jogged my memory. I just gave you that Reagan comparison, right? Reagan went reelected on 49 out of 50. Reagan was lower than Trump at this point.
Oh, wow, I didn't know that.
Yeah, it's crazy, right? Now, Reagan was at 35.
Wow.
Trump came in 40 today and came off about 37.
Yeah, he was at.
So he was at 37, bumped up to 40, and now Reagan was 35. So Reagan comes out at 35 and wins 49 out of 50.
Right.
Now, you know, it's like football, so what? That happened then. It's a different. But it does show me that no matter where we think these guys are, so I think Trump's got a great shot at re-election, and here's the analysis as how it should happen. The people who hate him the most want to go the most to the left. The more you get to the middle, the more people can separate that he's a creep, but a personal behavior. But what he's doing is necessary corporate tax cut, trying to encourage jobs to stay, a fight with China over having trade dominance over us. pushing down unemployment, getting minority unemployment down, which has traditionally been lagging so far, so maybe finally catch that up. Mortgage rates low, yelling at the Fed, what are you doing? Right? I mean, he is for the little guy. It's very ironic, right? Because he's a billionaire, but everybody thinks he's a liar, and that he has no money. So maybe deep down he really is just a little guy posing as a billionaire. That's why he's good at picking up for the little guy. But it doesn't. He knows who to yell at. He's very pro-military. He's very pro-soldier. He's very pro their family. You know, he's very anti these crazy abortion laws. That's another one played into his head. So the answer to your question is the weakness of the Democrats is they got to watch their left. If they get too crazy, then the middle is going to say, look, he's foul-mouthed, he's this, he's that, but we're not putting these lefties in there because they're going to socialize the whole country, bankrupt us. Then we'll have nothing. Then we're going to be like Europe. We're going to be looking for China to really bail us out. Then China's going to come in with never firing a shot, and they're going to really have their say over us. So we got to look out. He's a good barking dog for capitalism. So I think what you could still beat him with is, I think it looks like Kamala Harris is the prototype. You've got to have some kind of credibility in the not white privilege.
Yeah. Oh, God.
If you have white privilege on you, they're going to say it's the same old thing. It's a vote for Trump. So you got to get out of white privilege. It's very racist, I have to say. I mean, this is not the America that my grandfather fought for.
Right.
My people were against the use of this, but you got to be practical.
What?
Right now, if you're going to beat him, if you can do gender and race on him, then you're going to start picking up. But you have to be so low key that you can get the people that would almost vote for him or voted for him last time and say, oh my God, I can't vote for him again.
See, my point back at you, Ed, with that is Kamala Harris has, I believe, no shot at winning against Trump. And I'm not trying to be sexist, but I don't believe that any woman, because of Hillary Clinton, has a shot at beating Trump. I believe that it has to be a man.
Well, yeah, but she's got a good answer for that the other day. She's already got a good answer.
Yeah, she did.
Because you can't lead with your gender. We can't be talking about breaking ceilings. No more of that. Just let the fact that she's a woman be unspoken. So she goes unspoken as a woman, and she goes very mainstream minority and very bright and experienced. She could pick up his middle. I just think when you shut the thing, people still want the wall. They do want the wall. Nobody's silly. Everybody in Middle America has a wall. Everybody's got walls. Every gated community's got gates and walls. Sure. So I think he's still got the people better understood than the people who hate him. That's what I think is happening right now by Snapshot. His polls went up because they don't like him, but they understand what he's doing, and the other side is looking too crazed to oppose him rather than argue. Instead of giving argument, they look like everything he exhales, they shoot down. And that's making them look a little empty agenda. We'll see. It'd be very interesting. This is what's great about America, right? That this is a real deal right now. Well, anyway, it's been a pleasure being on your podcast. Anything you need before I go?
Yeah, Ed, I just wanted to thank you for coming on, and thanks for coming on Conversations with Rob. It's been a pleasure. And I hope to talk to you on the radio on 105.9 soon.
Oh, yeah, man. Do that. I always look forward to your calls, Rob.